Welcome, everyone. My name again is Oren Selstrom. I'm the litigation director at Lawyers for Civil Rights, and we have the honor of representing the cities of Chelsea and Somerville in this critical lawsuit. Today, we filed suit in federal district court to challenge the Trump administration's unrelenting and unconstitutional campaign to target sanctuary cities. Our lawsuit lays out how Trump's attempt to bully and intimidate cities into participating in federal immigration enforcement flies in the face of fundamental constitutional principles. As you'll hear, Chelsea identifies as a sanctuary city and Somerville as a welcoming community. What that means is that they, like many cities across the country, have made the decision that the public safety of their residents is best served when local police focus on fighting crime and do not become entangled in federal immigration enforcement. They know that our communities are stronger when victims or witnesses of crime don't fear that going to police will expose them or their loved ones to the threat of immigration enforcement. Under our Constitution, cities have every right to make that determination. The president cannot use federal funds as a weapon to bend cities to his will. He cannot sign executive orders and with the stroke of a pen take away the right of local governments to make decisions that keep their residents safe. As you'll hear, millions of dollars that go to vital city services are at stake. Local autonomy is at stake. To hear more, I'd like to turn now to Chelsea City Manager Fidel Maltez.
Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Fidel Maltez, and I am honored to be the city manager in Chelsea. Today, we stand together, Chelsea, Somerville, and our partners at Lawyers for Civil Rights, to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to our immigrant communities and to challenge unjust federal overreach. Chelsea is a city of immigrants. I will say it again, Chelsea is a city of immigrants. Our strength, resilience, and progress have always been driven by the hard-working families who call this community home, regardless of their immigration status. The Trump administration's effort to strip federal funding from sanctuary cities are unlawful and attack the very values that make our nation strong. These punitive actions seek to instill fear in our communities and undermine local governments that are doing the work of serving and protecting all of our residents. But let me be clear, Chelsea will not be intimidated. We will continue to provide services, resources, and support to every member of our community without exception. We will continue to follow the clear law confirming states and cities cannot be intimidated into enforcing immigration laws. And we will not allow federal policies to dictate how we care for people that call Chelsea home. Chelsea is, and Chelsea will always be, a place where every resident has the right to live with dignity and without fear. We thank Lawyers for Civil Rights, we thank our community, we thank our partners at La Colaborativa for their leadership in this legal fight, and our fellow leaders in Somerville for standing with us. Together, we will ensure that justice prevails and that our cities remain a place of opportunity and hope for all. And I will do my remarks in Spanish as well. Buenos días y gracias a todos por estar aquí. Hoy estamos unidos con Chelsea, Somerville y nuestros socios en Lawyers for Civil Rights para reafirmar nuestro compromiso con nuestras comunidades inmigrantes y desafiar los excesos injustos del gobierno federal. Chelsea es una ciudad de inmigrantes. Nuestra fuerza, resiliencia y progreso siempre han sido impulsados por las familias trabajadoras, que consideran a esta comunidad su hogar, sin importar su estatus migratorio. Los esfuerzos de la administración de Trump para despojar estos fondos federales a las ciudades santuarias son ilegales y atacan los valores que representan a este país. Estas acciones quieren infundir miedo en nuestras comunidades y provocar a los gobiernos locales que están haciendo el trabajo de servir y protegiendo a todos nuestros residentes. Pero les quiero ser claro, Chelsea no se dejará intimidar. Chelsea continuará dando servicios, recursos y apoyos a todos los miembros de nuestra comunidad, sin ninguna excepción. Seguiremos siguiendo las leyes que confirman que los estados y las ciudades no pueden ser intimidadas para hacer cumplir las leyes de inmigración federales. Chelsea es y siempre será un lugar donde cada residente tiene el derecho de vivir con dignidad y sin miedo. Agradecemos a todos los que están aquí presentes hoy, agradecemos a nuestros compañeros en la comunidad, en la colaborativa, el Lawyers for Civil Rights y la ciudad de Somerville por apoyarnos. Thank you. Gracias. And now, I'll hand it over. And now I'll hand it over to Somerville Mayor.
My name is Katiana Ballantyne. I am the mayor of Somerville, Massachusetts. Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Somerville and Chelsea may be smaller cities, but the lawsuit we filed today is no small matter. It addresses something much larger than just our two communities. Constitutionally protected state, local, and individual rights are under assault. Under the banner of attacks on sanctuary cities. The complaint we filed today is in defense of our two cities and all other sanctuary cities. But make no mistake, its success is vital to all of us. First, let's clear up what sanctuary city policy means in Somerville, which is a welcoming community. We follow all state and federal laws. We protect public safety. We fight crime. We work to protect victims and enforce law equally for all persons regardless of immigration status. And we do cooperate with federal agencies, including immigration, on criminal cases. But as a welcoming community, we keep our officers focused on the job they are trained and hired to do, which is local public safety. That means they neither carry out nor do they interfere with federal immigration enforcement. Being a welcoming community upholds every person's 14th Amendment right to due process when under the jurisdiction of U.S. law. Being a welcoming community supports trust in law enforcement. Trust is vital. It drives down crime. It makes victims and witnesses feel safer coming forward. Being a welcoming community builds safety for all. But our new federal administration wants to strip us of our constitutional right to direct our own local police resources as best serves our community. All the way from Washington, they want to order our local police to take time away from preventing crimes like home burglaries or assaults and instead carry out mass deportations. They want to tell our traffic cops to shift time away from making sure kids get safely to school and workers to their jobs and to instead carry out family separation. They want our brave police officers to reduce resources for protecting victims of domestic violence or for stopping drunk drivers, and instead to raid our schools, workplaces, hospitals, and churches. But unless we abandon our lawful policies, unless we take on federal job immigration enforcement, unless we accept this unfunded mandate, unless we storm the local sandwich shops, they say they'll take away our federal funds, funds that we pay taxes for, no matter who it hurts in our community. They seem to be okay if yanking funding hurts police who need bulletproof vests or small businesses that need our water system to function. They seem to think it's okay if overriding our right to make local decisions violates state and local rights under the 10th Amendment. They seem to think it's okay to threaten us with prosecution under made-up rules unless we ignore due process, cede our local rights, and instead use our limited local resources for federal functions. This attempt to bully sanctuary cities into mass deportation isn't just a lazy approach that avoids the real work of needed immigration reform. It makes our communities less safe, damages our economy, drives up prices, and as our complaints argues, blatantly violates the US Constitution. This lawsuit is just two smaller cities doing our part to fight in court against this giant, frankly embarrassing, abuse of power. Again, this has consequences for all of us. In Somerville, our residents know that communities are safer when police focus on preventing crimes and leave federal immigration enforcement to the feds. We know that stripping localities of their right to lawful local policies and ignoring due process erodes everyone's rights. And we know that weaponizing federal funding threatens the health and safety of all residents, be it your neighbor who relies on Meals on Wheels for dinner or a veteran who needs help accessing job resources. In Somerville, we believe in safe, welcoming communities, policies that serve all our people, and in safeguarding all our rights. We urge the administration to honor our Constitution and let us serve our communities as we know best. This isn't something you should have to fight for in court, but it's what Somerville and Chelsea are stepping up to do, and I have every confidence that we will prevail. Thank you. Next, I'm going to invite Somerville's Office of Immigrant Affairs Director, Maria Teresa Nagel, and she will give my remarks in Spanish.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Como dijo la alcaldesa Katina Valentine, mi nombre es María Teresa Nagel y soy la directora de la Oficina de Asuntos para Inmigrantes en Somerville. Ahora leeré las palabras de la alcaldesa en español. Bienvenidos y muchas gracias a todos por estar aquí. Somerville y Chelsea pueden ser ciudades pequeñas, pero la demanda que presentamos hoy no es algo pequeño. apunta a algo muchísimo más grande que nuestras dos comunidades, porque los derechos individuales, locales y estatales que están protegidos bajo la Constitución están bajo ataque, usando la excusa de que somos ciudades santuario. La demanda que presentamos hoy es en defensa de nuestras dos ciudades y de todas las otras ciudades santuario, pero no se equivoquen, su éxito es crítico para todos nosotros. Primero, aclaremos qué significa ser una ciudad santuario en nuestras políticas en Somerville, que es una comunidad acogedora. Nosotros seguimos las leyes estatales y las leyes federales. Protegemos no sé por qué, se me está ocurriendo decir salud pública, las comunidades y nos aseguramos de luchar contra el crimen. Luchamos para proteger a las víctimas y para reforzar todas las leyes de manera equitativa para todas las personas, sin importar su estatus migratorio. Y cooperamos con las agencias federales, incluyendo en materia de migración, pero en casos criminales. Como una comunidad acogedora, nosotros mantenemos a nuestros oficiales enfocados en el trabajo para el cual fueron entrenados y para el cual se les paga, que es mantener a nuestras comunidades seguras. También esto significa que nosotros no llevamos a cabo, pero tampoco interferimos en el control de migración federal. Ser una comunidad acogedora significa que nosotros seguimos la enmienda 14 de la Constitución, donde las personas tienen derecho al debido proceso, bajo la jurisdicción de la ley de Estados Unidos. Ser una comunidad acogedora nos ayuda a continuar fomentando la confianza en nuestra comunidad y en nuestros oficiales de seguridad. La confianza es vital, nos ayuda a reducir el crimen, hace que las víctimas y aquellos que ven un crimen se sientan cómodas en salir adelante y reportarlo. Ser una comunidad acogedora nos ayuda a construir seguridad para todos. Pero nuestra nueva administración federal quiere quitarnos todos estos derechos constitucionales y dirigir a nuestra policía y nuestros escasos recursos fuera de lo que nosotros sabemos le sirve a nuestra comunidad. Desde Washington, ellos quieren poder ordenar a nuestra policía y quitarles el tiempo de prevenir crímenes como son el meterse a robar a casas o los asaltos, para, en cambio, llevar a cabo deportaciones masivas. Ellos quieren decirle a nuestros policías de tráfico que dejen su tiempo para que, en vez de proteger a nuestros hijos, a que puedan llegar bien a las escuelas y a los trabajadores a que puedan llegar bien a sus trabajos, que en cambio se dediquen a separar familias. Ellos quieren que nuestros policías tengan que reducir sus recursos que dedican a proteger víctimas de violencia doméstica o de detener a personas que están manejando bajo la influencia y que en cambio acudan a nuestras escuelas, a nuestros lugares de trabajo, a nuestros hospitales y a nuestras iglesias a sacar a nuestros miembros de la comunidad. Y a menos que nosotros dejemos atrás nuestras políticas, que son políticas que atienden a la ley, a menos que nosotros empecemos a hacer el trabajo del gobierno federal, del control migratorio, a menos que nosotros aceptemos estas demandas que nos está haciendo el gobierno federal, a menos que nosotros vayamos a nuestro restaurante local donde venden sándwiches, a menos que nosotros hagamos todo esto, dicen que nos van a quitar nuestros recursos federales. Recursos que nosotros pagamos impuestos para obtener, sin importar a quién vaya a herir en nuestra comunidad. Parece que ellos están bien y se sienten cómodos con quitarles recursos a nuestra policía que necesita chalecos antibalas o que a nuestros negocios pequeños que necesitan de agua para poder funcionar. Parece que a ellos no les importa tener que tomar decisiones que violen las leyes estatales y locales bajo la 10ª enmienda de la Constitución. Parece que a ellos no les importa estarnos diciendo que nos van a enviar a la corte y van a crear leyes inventadas para ignorar nuestro proceso, para que nosotros tengamos que darles nuestros derechos y para que nosotros tengamos que darles nuestros recursos limitados. Este bullying que le están haciendo a las ciudades santuarios para llevarnos a que llevemos a cabo deportaciones masivas, no solo es una manera muy perezosa de tomarse el tiempo del control migratorio, sabiendo que lo que necesitamos es reforma migratoria, sino que además es una idea terrible. Hace que nuestras comunidades estén menos seguras, le da un gran golpe a nuestra economía, hace que los precios de todo suban y, como explicamos en nuestra demanda, viola de una manera grotesca la Constitución de Estados Unidos. Esta demanda puede que solo sean 2 ciudades pequeñas que se están metiendo a esta pelea contra un gigante y, francamente, un embarazoso abuso de poder. De nuevo, las consecuencias que esto tiene son consecuencias para todos nosotros. En Somerville, nuestros residentes saben que nuestras comunidades son más seguras cuando la policía se enfoca en prevenir el crimen y deja que el gobierno federal se encargue del control migratorio. Sabemos que quitarnos a nosotros, a nuestras ciudades, el derecho de llevar a cabo las políticas, sabiendo que nosotros tenemos derecho a un proceso, que eso va a llevar a cabo a que no haya confianza en nuestras leyes y que no haya confianza en los derechos de nuestros residentes. Y sabemos que utilizar los fondos federales como un arma contra nuestras ciudades viola la salud y la seguridad de todos los residentes, especialmente de aquellos que tal vez necesitan de comida a través de los programas como Meals on Wheels o de nuestros veteranos de guerra que necesiten ayuda accediendo a trabajo. En Somerville, confiamos y sabemos que nuestras comunidades acogedoras son las mejores maneras de proteger y servir a nuestras comunidades y de salvaguardar nuestros derechos. Le urgimos a la Administración Federal que por favor respete la Constitución y que nos permita gobernar a nuestras comunidades como nosotros sabemos hacerla. Esto no es algo por lo cual deberíamos de tener que luchar en corte, pero es algo que Somerville y Chelsea están dispuestos a hacer y tenemos toda la confianza de que lo vamos a ganar. Muchas gracias.
Okay. Thank you. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Norielice Jesus, Chelsea City Council Representative of District 3 and Council President. I would be remiss if I don't acknowledge first and foremost the people in the crowd. Quiero reconocer que tenemos el pueblo presente hoy y también la colaborativa está aquí presente. Without their leadership, without the boots on the ground, we would not be a sanctuary city today. So Gladys Vega, la colaborativa, and most of our community members, gracias por su valentía. As president of the Chelsea City Council, I am proud to stand here today with our partners from Somerville and with our legal partners, Lawyers for Civil Rights. Chelsea will always stand with our immigrant families. For generations, immigrants have been the heart of this community. We have built businesses. We have raised our blended families. We have strengthened our neighborhoods. And the Trump administration's attempt to strip funding from this sanctuary city is a direct attack on our families and our values. Fairness, inclusion, compassion. This is about people, not just policy. This is about families who deserve to live without fear. This is about workers who contribute to our economy. This is about children. children who should feel safe at home, children who should feel safe at school. Chelsea stands strong. We are strong. And we will not be bullied into turning our back on our families. We will continue to provide the essential services that organizations like La Colaborativa have been providing for years. We will continue to advocate for our families. We will continue to fight against any effort to divide or marginalize us. Our city is strong, and it's strong because of our diversity, not in spite of it. With that being said, I just want to thank everyone, including our partners in Somerville, including our legal partners from Lawyers for Civil Rights, but also our great leadership from our city manager, Fidel Maltes. Thank you all.
Good afternoon. My name is Judy Pineda-Neufeld, and I'm standing here before you as the proud daughter of 2 immigrant parents. Parents who taught me the importance of hard work and always standing up for what is right and what is just. I'm also standing here today as the president of the Somerville City Council, a community and a council that has nearly for 4 decades been unwavering in our commitment to protecting and standing with our immigrant neighbors. Somerville first declared ourselves a sanctuary city in 1987. We reaffirmed that commitment over and over again in 2016, in 2019, and again just last year in 2024, when my colleagues and I passed a resolution making it clear that we will not waver in upholding our values of inclusion, equity, and justice. Our message today is simple. Somerville is a welcoming city, like Chelsea. We will not be intimidated or coerced into policies that betray the safety, dignity, and trust of our residents. And we will fight, both in our city and in the courts, to defend our right to govern in a way that reflects our community values. This lawsuit is not just about Somerville, it's not just about Chelsea. It's about the fundamental rights of our cities and towns across the country to decide how best to keep our residents safe. It is about rejecting the false choice between federal funding and standing up for what is right. We know from experience that when immigrants feel safe, our entire community is safer. We've seen firsthand that public safety is best served when trust between law enforcement and the community is strong. So today, Somerville stands with Chelsea and with every sanctuary city across the country to say we will not be silenced. We will not be forced into complicity with unjust and unconstitutional federal overreach, and we will keep fighting every day to ensure that every person in our community, no matter where they were born, has the right to live with dignity, has the right to live without fear, and has the right to live with the full protections of our cities behind them. Thank you.
Attorney's office, obviously they see sanctuary cities, but they also say they're not sovereign nations that you fall under federal jurisdiction. What's the strategy to fight this since you answered a federal jurisdiction on this? Do you want it to go all the way to the Supreme Court?
Well, this issue came up in the first Trump administration when Trump tried this before, and the courts sided with sanctuary cities. The Constitution is very clear that the president cannot insert additional conditions into federal funding and try to bend the cities to his will. So the courts have been very clear on this in the first Trump administration, And we fully expect that that will be the same this time around.
Lauren, certainly the threat of revoking federal funding has been made. Has it been acted on at all? And then my second vital conversation against these two cities. Second question is, the SJC Lund decision already prevents local officers from, detaining or arresting based on immigration status. So do Somerville and Chelsea go further in their sanctuary status, or are they in the same boat as everybody else?
Great questions. Let me start with the first was the federal.
Have they tried to revoke it yet?
As we have seen in other contexts, that is ongoing with this administration using federal funding and the stripping jurisdictions of federal funding in order to achieve its policy goals. So we're seeing that right now across the country. It's also quite clear that sanctuary cities are in the crosshairs, that President Trump and his agencies have said in no uncertain terms that he plans to strip federal funding from sanctuary cities. So this is quite clear that this is imminent, this is happening right now, and it needs to stop. I'm glad you brought up the Lund decision. It's a very important decision that the Massachusetts highest court, the Supreme Judicial Court, held that state officers, local police cannot hold people on immigration detainers longer than they would otherwise be held. That is something that these executive orders ignore, that in Massachusetts in particular, state law forbids those detainers from being honored. That is exactly the kind of positioning of between a rock and a hard place that these executive orders put jurisdictions in. That is why we need clarity from the federal courts and ruling from the federal courts that what Chelsea and Somerville are doing and have been doing for decades is fully constitutional, and that what is unconstitutional is the president's attempt to undermine that public safety and those values that our local communities adhere to.
Orrin, in the paperwork in the lawsuit, it says that these different cities have a certain amount of money that's coming in from the federal government, and that if they use it and it's then taken away, they're in a bad situation where they owe this money or it has to be forfeited. What are you advising as an attorney to these cities right now if the federal funding has not been taken yet, or they have it and they're holding it, or they have projects ready for it? What do you do?
That's a great question, because it really points out the deep uncertainty that these executive orders and federal directives cause. Much of what the cities do is through reimbursements from the federal government. And so this type of executive order, with its very broad and unconstitutional language, puts cities in the position of either having to go ahead and provide services and then not know whether that will be reimbursed by the federal government, or to forego those critical services that you heard about and then leave their residents without those services. So that is precisely the kind of deep uncertainty that these executive orders and directives put cities into, and that's why it's so necessary for federal courts to step in and make clear that this is overreach on the part of the president.
Orrin, this weekend you heard the border guard talk about setting his sights on Boston. Does a lawsuit like this just make him come across the bridge and put their sights on Chelsea and Somerville?
What is clear is that the sanctuary cities are being targeted as we speak. The executive orders and the federal directives could not be more clear in saying that sanctuary cities are going to be stripped of federal funding. The concern would be in doing nothing. The concern is not in stepping forward to assert the rights that cities have, that courts have upheld that cities have. The threat would be to do nothing. That is precisely what this administration wants, is to, by fear and bullying and intimidation, get cities and residents to back down from their values, from public safety promises that they have made for years. That is precisely why federal court action is needed to bring certainty here, and why it is so critical that Chelsea and Somerville are stepping up to challenge this overreach on the part of the president.
When you hear Holman say what he said, he's going to come to Boston and bring hell with him. When you hear that, you're saying that's not just politics that's being said there. You're taking him at face value when he says that.
It certainly is to be taken at face value, not only that he's going to target sanctuary cities, but that there is going to be removal of federal funding as a result. So yes, that is why we turn to the courts. When this type of overreach happens, the federal courts stand as a bulwark against that kind of executive overreach. We've seen that many times already, just in the short time since this president has been in office the second time. We saw it many times during the first administration, where it was key that people go to federal court to ensure that their rights are protected.
To that point, are you looking for a restraining order? Is that the quickest remedy right now?
Absolutely. The courts are in place to act quickly when needed. We've seen that already in a number of cases, even in the last 4 weeks.
So what is the timeline? Like, how does it work? What's the timeline to all of this? So you filed the lawsuit today, and then
When you file a lawsuit and then the law permits you to move forward quickly to assert your rights through a temporary restraining order, through a preliminary injunction, through other means when that kind of threat is imminent.
When do you think you might have a hearing?
There's no hearing that's been set now. The case was just filed today, but if necessary, we will move forward to protect the city's rights.
Or have Chelsea or Somerville police officers been specifically asked to engage with federal authorities more than they had before Trump came into office? Are they being asked to assist in deportation right now?
The policies of Chelsea and Somerville are clear, which is that they do not engage in federal immigration enforcement activities. That was true during the first administration, during the Biden administration, and now. So that is off the table for these entities. To be clear, there is no obstruction or interference with federal immigration enforcement, but the cities of Chelsea and Somerville do not assist in those efforts when they're underway.
Yesterday, the Boston mayor came out and said on the Lund law about detainers, civil detainers. He said, and when it comes to criminal detainers, they will get involved. Is that the case with your two cities?
As you heard from the speakers, there's a difference between criminal enforcement and civil enforcement. The whole point of the lawsuit is that the cities of Chelsea and Somerville want to have their local police go after crime that is happening, not to engage in federal immigration enforcement, which is a civil matter. So criminal enforcement is something that keeps communities safe. That is why the sanctuary city policies, welcoming community policies exist, is to build that community trust and to keep communities safer.
With several other sanctuary and welcoming communities around, how is the size of the suit determined?
Excuse me?
With several other welcoming and sanctuary communities around and then neighboring communities, how is the size of this suit determined?
Certainly Chelsea and Somerville are stalwarts in terms of being sanctuary cities and welcoming communities, and have been for decades. They know that it's important to step up and to assert their rights in this lawsuit that is not only about protecting their rights, but will also protect the rights of other sanctuary cities across the country. What we are asking from the court is that the court rule that the executive orders are illegal and set them aside nationwide. So that is why this lawsuit is so important.
Is this precedent setting? Any other cities come forward in the last 30 days? Is this precedent setting as far as the new Trump administration? Any other cities come forward like you are?
There's a lawsuit that's very similar in California. This is the first that has been filed on the East Coast.
Sorry, it's still not clear. Were other sanctuary and welcoming communities invited in, or?
They're certainly welcome to join. This is a case that is going to have impact beyond these two sanctuary cities. We are certainly welcoming others to join. That has happened in San Francisco as well. They have filed and other cities have joined. That is something that we would welcome if that occurs.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. We do have a digital press packet available. There are sheets outside and flyers on the wall with a QR code and a URL for it. It has the text of the speakers today, as well as their biographies, the press release and the complaint, as well as a few other items. There's a short FAQ that might be helpful to you. So thank you, everyone, for being here. That's it.
Thank you.